Hey, praise the Lord, saints and friends. Welcome to this May edition of the Life Vision Experience. We're talking about relationships. I think this is one of the most important things that we can talk about as human beings. Today, I want to talk about a relationship that's a little, maybe not what you were thinking about, but I want to talk about a strange but wonderful relationship, and that's the relationship of Black people, the Black church, in the United States of America. It's a relationship that started off in a pretty horrible way with the institution of slavery, bringing people from Africa over here to work in the United States and the Caribbean and South America. Horrible, brutal slavery that we just couldn't figure out how to get out of it. But in a miraculous way, God intervened, caused there to be a civil war that actually caused people from the Union Army to fight against the people of the South and the Confederacy that were trying to hold on to the institution of slavery. Bloodiest war in the history of the United States. More people died in the Civil War than all the wars leading up until almost recently, fighting to liberate Black people. Now, the reason this is so significant for us as Christians is because the Bible tells us that Israel is an example for us. We learn from God's dealing with them about his relationship with his people. And when you substitute Black people into the equation, because the Bible says this in Galatians 3:29, if you're Christ, then you're Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promises. Those are all the promises that were related to Black people apply from the template that we get from God's dealing with Israel. They were in slavery for 400 years. We've been in slavery for 400 years, and Jim Crow and all of that stuff that came out of it. God has something special for us, and we're going to talk about that in the next few minutes so that you can see that even though it started out as a strange relationship, God has turned the tables. So after the miracle of the Civil War freed millions of slaves, there was a backlash. All of these slaves were freed. There was a promise of 40 acres and a mule. Didn't happen. And the South was trying to figure out a way to do slavery 2.0, which wound up being Jim Crow. And as a result, you found millions of Black people beginning to migrate away from the South, away from the Jim Crow, and move to cities in the North and to the West and to the Midwest. Again, an amazing thing happened. You know, there were things that were codified into law. For instance, when they established the FHA, they drew lines around all the places where Black people lived. They redlined them and said you couldn't get an FHA loan, VA loans, and those kinds of things. Everything designed to disempower Black people in this country and cause there to be no investment in the neighborhoods that they lived in. But yet, when the civil rights era moved into high gear, over the last 60 years, the most amazing thing has taken place. God had promised to Abraham that the nation that is established from your loins, that they will become the head and not the tail, to be above and not beneath, to be blessed in the cities and blessed in the field. And certainly those promises that God made to Abraham and to Israel, God just started working it out here in the United States. So now we find ourselves having enough political power in many of the major cities that we now have Black mayors and mayors of people of color as well all over this country in numbers that are just amazing, and leading the major cities of the United States. I mean, we have starting on the West Coast in San Francisco, Mayor London Breed. In Los Angeles, Mayor Karen Bass. In Houston, Texas, Mayor Sylvester Turner. In Dallas, Texas, Mayor Eric Johnson. In Atlanta, Mayor Andre Dickens. In Chicago, newly elected Mayor Brandon Johnson. I believe some of these Johnsons are probably cousins of mine, probably. In New York City, one of the major cities of the world, Mayor Eric Adams. In Baltimore, Mayor Brandon Scott, a young man. In Washington, D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser. And the list goes on and on. In fact, just last night, we have one of the newest mayors, Mayor Yemi Mobiladi in Colorado Springs. God has just done an amazing turnaround to take people who were at the bottom. I think that Drake had that song. We started at the bottom, now we're here. And he moved us to the top. And so not only in the leadership as mayors, but in police chiefs and school superintendents and on city councils, God has brought us a long ways. And what I want to suggest to you in this relationship is that we need to see the cities as our promised land. Israel had a land of Canaan that God was bringing them to as a land of promise. God brought us here from Africa, and there's no easy way for us to get out of here. But what God has done is put us in control of the major assets, the major cities of America. This is our promised land. And I think it's time for us to recognize it as a divine gift to us, and treat it as such in every way, in the way it looks, in the way we take care of it, and having righteousness in our leadership. Now, here's the thing that I want to close with, and particularly for us as a church. During the time of slavery, the South, of course, was the main beneficiary of these slaves. There are Christians throughout the South, and we have major Christian organizations developed during the South. Southern Baptist Church, the Assemblies of God, Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee. These people were involved in the benefits of slavery, the culture of slavery. It was a part of their culture. So they were Christians, but with a Confederate mindset. And so when Jim Crow came along, we have folks who were pastors, who were deacons, who were Sunday school teachers, in the church on Sunday morning, but in Sunday night putting on Klan hoods and robes and lynching and murdering and causing havoc amongst the black population. Today, the DNA of that mindset is prevalent in what we call evangelicals. And we still find ourselves as a black church, even coming out of slavery, not allowed to worship together, a distinction between the white church and the black church. So we develop independently. That stuff still comes to this day. So we're dealing with that in terms of how do we as kingdom people become really kingdom people without the heavy baggage of the Confederacy on our brothers and sisters. But as the black church, we've got to take the leadership in bringing this concept of the cities are our possession, the cities are our inheritance. God did it. God worked it out. God orchestrated it. And here we are. And so the church has to reassume a position of causing the people to see that this is God's gift, this is God's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. And therefore, we have to provide the prophetic voice of the Spirit of God into every fiber and every aspect of our cities and of our children and of the leadership. This is our finest hour. It's been a strange and a weird relationship, but it's a glorious one because God is the author and the finisher of our faith. Let's embrace it. The city God has given to us and to have stewardship of and be the head and not the tail. God bless you.